Hello, Judith. Time for a show.
Well, that's a nice one. I want one of those.
No, I should put it back, really. I got ready, you see.
I like it. You look like you're going to start rapping.
Yeah, we definitely need one of those in California here.
Right? That's wonderful. Oh, that's nice, Andrea. Look at you.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if you're, it's like a dancing in the tulips disco girl. Annette, how wonderful to see you.
Yes, and I was burning a candle for the anniversary, so.
Wonderful.
How wonderful, how wonderful. It's grand to see you for the first time. I've seen your video, of course, but this is the first time I've seen you in real life.
We're doing hats. Howdy, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
I have to get myself a hat. Let me see. Wow.
It's International Hat Day.
Yeah.
We'll be back. 1 second.
We have a lot to celebrate, don't we? Oh, Steffi, for your first time to see you. Laura, what a pleasure.
Hi.
Very nice, Annette.
Oh, now that's the season to be jolly.
Welcome everyone to our first anniversary online. Before I share screens, I just want to say that I think everyone who is here today is very lucky because I spent quite a while to make this retrospective kind of view from our most exciting webinars, trying to choose the sweetest pieces and bits. So you'll kind of catch up and you definitely will get a feeling of what it is like to be with IAM online community that we are trying to build. So we had a vision of a platform that would bring together people scattered around the globe, and we would wanted to unite all the new Mind Mirror practitioners, self-trainers, and literally everyone who is interested in meditation and biofeedback. Same time, last year, we got together with Judith, and I put here funny formula, 1 + 1 is more than 2.
Oh.
And we had our first online meeting. Today, we have much more than just a round date to celebrate. And I want to share with you some results of our work. So first of all, we managed to hold 23 meetings online with more and more people coming in. So we covered great topics about mind mirror history and theory and brainwave patterns and neurofeedback and music and creativity and gamma and high frequency states. So there's lots and lots, and you'll get glimpses of that later in little video cuts that I prepared for you. So right now we have over 30 videos in our IAM collection on Tilde website. There are videos that accompany the manual. If you check them, they are free for new users. There are lots of helpful videos for beginners, and I'm sure that some of them will be of great help even to older practitioners, because during this webinar, Judith does the hookup and explains how it all works, how to read. So you could easily kind of get your hands on, and I invite everyone to go there and check these videos. So we have over 40 members, and of course more people in our news list, but just members who showed up at least once or purchased our videos from our webinars. And all these people, you may ask, who are these people? I tried to prepare some analyses, and I found that probably most often you'll see the word healer, entrepreneur, alternative health therapist, and there are lots of course, social workers and psychologists, mental health specialists and trainers and doctors. But I guess what is more important, that all these people share the same interests. We all are interested in meditation, in neuroscience, in healing. Very often people mention hypnosis, binaural beats, lucid dreaming, Chinese medicine, or any other alternative modality. And as one of our members, David Fairweather, said, these are the best people in the world, and to my mind, I try to find all the words to describe people that I have met so far, and I can say that they are truly intelligent, creative, multi-talented, deep, with a great sense of humor. They are with awakened minds and coherent hearts, with a passion and with something to say. So today we would like to say a big thank you to those who made it possible, to everyone who participated. And we say thank you to our special guests and speakers. And right now I present George Pearson, who is Awakened Mind trainer and former art director at ABC HBO Discovery Channel. He's an artist. He's a very, very creative person. And he delivered webinar on creativity. Though he's using old technology, I still wanted you to have a look at how a truly creative person explains, presents visually the theory of brainwaves and how he just approaches the subject of creativity from its deepest and broadest perspective.
Once you've heard about the work of Max Cade, that was probably life-changing for you too. What was fascinating from my knowledge of Max Cade, he was considered the father of biofeedback in England, but he knew about different states of consciousness. This chart here, from deep sleep all the way up to elimination. When he discovered this awakened mind pattern first in yogis, he put it at category 5 in this list of states of consciousness. He called it the awakened mind. And here's, as we know, a graphic symbol of the awakened mind. And here are some of the basic attributes of like beta is really time space, clear alert thinking, and alpha is relaxed, detached sensory awareness, and beta is creative inspiration, out of the blue ideas. It's almost like a creative mind continuum, because once you access this awakened mind pattern, it doesn't stop. And here's a drawing of an iceberg in water, and you can see the tip of the iceberg is, is beta. That's the one that we spend most of our awareness on. This illustration of an iceberg kind of says it all. Mm-hmm. Because the tip of the iceberg represents time-space reality. And because it represents reality as we know it, that's the focus that science puts so much emphasis on, because it's very difficult to measure, as we know, that twilight zone, or that subjective reality, that reality that Baba must have operated from to materialize those ashes coming out of his fingertips. Like, how is that possible? That's not even real. So it could be that he was living in this awakened duality state in time-space. There's so much left to learn about the creative mind and how it manifests. And what you see here, I'm simply using Anna's Awakened Mind guided meditation protocol, and just using specific words or phrases, you'll start to see the formation of this awakened mind pattern. It works all the time. It's just so amazing to me how effective it is. This is an artist who went through a messy divorce because his wife was complaining he was spending so much time on his artwork. Notice how his right hemisphere kind of out of whack and shutting down. Anyway, with just a little feedback, and he came back. We saw a correction, and now look at his beautiful, well-balanced brainwave pattern. Just from receiving just a little bit of feedback. It makes me wonder if brainwaves, they like to be watched, in other words.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I truly believe they like to be watched, and I think you would agree with him. I'd like to welcome and thank our valuable speaker, Peter Staples, who is one of Max Cade's students and also a mine trainer and developer of ESRG sound temperature meters. Let's watch a little video from one of the webinars with Peter Staples. I'm sure that you will enjoy it.
So, well, after Max died, there was still a demand for the classes. And I got together with Isabel and we would run them together for quite some time. And what you'd find is that people, there were not people who were you know, enthusiasts or in the field. They're just basically people who've come along because they're interested. And we'd had one group called, we'd offer a service called the mobile unit. And the idea was if you had a group of people, you could book us for a day, maybe a Saturday, and we would go along and run the class there. They probably thought it would be a converted Pantechnicon or something like that with a classroom in the back. In fact, it was a Volkswagen with a couple of crates of instruments. And so they would set the a room up and we would lay out all the instruments. So what we would be using then would be typically, say, for everybody an ESR meter, skin resistance meter, and a peripheral temperature, and we'd have about 3 mine mirrors. And they would probably all get an opportunity within that day to get on the mine mirrors. While I'm here, I want to just give the opportunity to show you some of these, I don't think they're legacy equipment. I call them first generation and second generation equipment. Now, what I'm hoping is I can get them in front of the webcam. So the original ESRs, Max made out of little card file boxes using old meters from kind of army surplus and bits and bobs with a soldering iron. But once Geoffrey Blundell saw them, he said, oh, well, I can do better than that. And he produced the Omega 1. So this machine is kind of, it was the first one, firstly to have a measurement from the palm, which is a bit more stable, albeit more complex probe to make than the fingertip. But it's doing the same kind of thing as the GSR on the Ballistus. This is a sort of equivalent, it's temperature meter, so it's got a temperature probe, a thermistor there. You attach the thermistor, say, to a fingertip, usually just with tape or Velcro. And this is in centigrade, all the UK stuff's in centigrade. At the moment it's reading 32. Take a little moment to warm up. So this is the one you'll see, say, in the book. There's no, there would be a contact set, not that dissimilar from the Ballistus one. It's not quite the same, but there's basically 2 pairs of electrode and an earth one. Feeds into here, and then these are the equivalent of the bars you'll see on the Ballistus display. So these are red LEDs which are lit up all the time. So I'm just getting a sort of artifact by touching it. And then, of course, there's no way on this machine to record things. It doesn't have a computer on it, but you can freeze. So this freeze button allows us to, if somebody's doing something we particularly want to draw their attention to, maybe they have their eyes closed, you can freeze it and then show them what they were doing afterwards. This machine does actually have a way of recording. Geoffrey put an interface where you can plug a cassette player into the side, and it basically just records it as an unprocessed signal, and then there's a playback button. When you play it back, it will play it back into the mine mirror as though it was the signal coming off your head. In fact, it's even got an interface of the filtered channels, which I think was developed for looking at the transcendental meditation stuff. So so the mine mirror 1, the original mine mirror, looked roughly like that. That one's the mine mirror 2. There were a few changes just on the way the filters work that came out of experience, really. So Anna used to she bought a lot of these ones back in the 80s. And so I'm sure that quite a few of them still going around in the States. Now, these came along. So the mine mirror 1 came around in 1976, and this mine mirror 2 was not that much later. But by the end of the 80s, it had become impractical for audio to keep making these in machines. So the cost of the mind mirror constructing the thing got so expensive, it wasn't really realistic to do that anymore. So 2 new machines, replacements, were brought out by a company called Biomonitors, which was Jeffrey and his nephew, Neil Hancock. So this was what replaced that. This is the Mind Mirror 3. So this machine, it's essentially kind of self-contained, but it just has a small display. So on this machine, it uses the same contact set. It feeds in and it displays the bars on the display here, and it's got a freeze button. But there's also an output through an optic fiber modem, so you can connect that to a computer, and then you use the big computer screen like you do on the Ballistas, and you can record sessions and look at the signals and all that kind of stuff and print them. So the difference between this kind of technology and the Ballistas is that the frequency analysis is done within the box. What comes out is just a feed of the process signal to the computer. And in fact, if you don't mind the small scale, you can run it as a self-contained unit. But so although this is analyzed in software rather than in hardware, like in the Mind Mirror 2, it's basically does the same thing. And then the other one they brought out was this baby. This is called the ET meter, Biomonitors as well. So this relates to what we're going to do in a minute. So there's the same kind of square as on the Mind Mirror, and there's a signal for ESR and a signal for temperature. So there's a newer version of the palm electrode, so that fits on the palm for ESR, and there's a temperature probe which fits on the finger, and then when you turn it on, I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a vertical bar and a horizontal bar. So now, instead of being a needle on the scale, the skin resistance is a vertical line, and I can vary the offset, so I can, there's a bit of reflection on that bit, so I can center the needle that way. And the temperature is a horizontal bar. That's kind of natural. If you think of an old style mercury thermometer, hot is at the top, cools down the bottom, so it's kind of like that. And I can vary this. But the thing about this scale is that it's not just about whether it moves to the left or the right. There's also 4 states, so there's a correlation between the change in skin resistance and temperature. So what we're finding is, for example, if the ESR moves over this way, that could be, say, flight and fight, could be panic, but it could also be an involvement. So maybe there's high arousal because you're doing something. Probably not something you get so much in a classroom where you tend to be sitting there, but you can still see that. And you might see it, say, in insight. So somebody, there's some kind of emotional block released, and suddenly there's a surge of energy and the peripheral temperature goes up. And it's not the same as the panic state. And then on the other side, when we're coming down the skin resistance on the other side, the saying on there, that could be relaxed and alert, or it could be going dozy. And so the difference will be determined by the temperature. So if the peripheral temperature is staying up, we're saying, well, we've got a relaxed and alert state. This is the one we're after, really, awakened mind. And if you're really just going off to sleep, again, hypothalamus sort of checking in and saying, oh, we've done enough of this, we're going to turn everything off, then you'll find the responsiveness will go. Somebody won't have the same, you know, that's like if you get dozy when you're driving a car, it's just kind of really dangerous. It's not a good state to be in if you've got to be doing things. Oh, and also there's actual temperature up here. Again, it's centigrade on here. So this gadget was conceived completely by Geoffrey Blundell and brought out as a replacement to the ESR and the skin resistance. But by having a single display, what it allows us to do is interpret in a much more right brain way what these shifts actually mean. So instead of looking at numbers and just, oh, it's going that way or that way, we're actually moving into these different emotional responses as we see directly on the meter. The relevance of this today is that when Steve connects, he's going to show you that on the new Ballistus.
Thank you for being patient and watching this, because I really like how he explained the meter, and it will help you, as it helped me, to understand what new meter was invented this year for Ballistus. Moreover, I tried to choose the pieces where people speak about things they're passionate about or they're very knowledgeable at. So it's not just emotional thing, it's also, I think, very informative thing. So the next person we of course would like to thank for not just a special guest and our speaker, but of course as Ballistus developer, Steve Clark. And just to give you a feeling of what the person is like.
So I think what we need to do, yeah, thanks. And perhaps, Gary, you'll probably need something else as well. So I think we're looking at...
We'll take whatever we can get.
Right. That's never been the case with the Mind Mirror. Right, I'll see what I can do.
Yes. Sounds good.
That'd be nice.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I like challenges.
So he's the person who likes challenges, and I want him because I said as soon as you say it out loud to the universe will start testing you. So make sure you ask for what you really wanted. I'm sure we will provide Steve Clark with more challenges. Another person very dear to me because he's also from Australia is John Coates. And he is biofeedback practitioner, mainly specializing in HRV and having all sorts of other knowledge and occupations. So let's hear what he has to say. And you, I hope, will take something from this short video too.
You really want to get into heart rate variability. You really need, to be able to measure the breathing to see what's happening in tandem with the heart rate.
Why this 6 breaths per minute is so good.
Well, this is considered the resonant frequency where you get the balance in both ends of the autonomic nervous system. And it does vary in people between 4.5 and 7 breaths a minute. But a good nominal rate, which was used for many years, is 6 breaths a minute, and you will get some gains in heart rate variability. So it's like fine-tuning your car, finding this actual resonant frequency for each person, somewhere between 4.5 and 7. But originally the gurus indicated twice a day for 20 minutes at a time. And I've tried it and it's pretty full on. And the reason I stopped doing it was on the advice of the referring doctor that his patients could not do it. And he's right. Some people can't even handle 5 minutes, which is the period I try and get them to breathe at when I'm running through the session with them. So if you can get 3 minutes 2 or 3 times a day, 4 times a day, that's pretty good.
John invited everyone to practice breathing to balance or improve your heart rate variability, which basically means balancing your nervous system and improving the health of your heart, or breathing heart coherence, as Andrea would probably say. So he said like 2-3 times a day for 5 minutes is great, but you have to be consistent and stable to get some results. Another very dear guest of ours and speaker who delivered a webinar about key gong of high states is Anna Weiss's husband and very famous Qigong teacher in America, if I'm not mistaken, Jim McRitchie. And here is a video from his webinar that I'm sure you will enjoy.
And so I went to offer classes at something called the Franklin School of Contemporary Studies in London, and sitting behind the desk on the reception was this absolutely fabulously gorgeous, beautiful, fresh, bright, radiant young lady. Well, I was a younger man myself then. So she was the one that I was supposed to negotiate with to start dance classes. And she said, oh, I've danced and I'm interested. Oh, maybe I should do your classes. And, and that was Anna. And I have a photograph of her sitting behind the desk before we had any personal connection. I just had a camera and took a picture, which was a nice thing. And so my pickup line to her, which I tried when we were having the first kind of introductory overview at this Franklin school, was something a friend of mine said, well, try this one time. So I tried this and said, well, Anna, I find you very attractive. Why don't we get together, have a couple of children, and then we'll see if we want to like take it from there, you see. And she had this very alarmed look in her eyes, and she backed away slowly with her hand on the doorknob, you know, and said, well, it's been very nice to meet you. And, oh, yes, well, I hope your class goes well. Well, we only had one child, you know, but we were together for 14 years. The first 7 years were in London. And at the time, at the Franklin School, she was studying with Max. And also with Jeff Blundell. Jeff was the guy that made all of the equipment. He was like an electronics wizard genius. And they together designed and built the Mind Mirror. And that was the other major focus of her time and life. And also Elizabeth St. John. She was involved with Max and Jeff, and we were always going out and, you know, going to the Audio Limited and finding equipment and hooking people up and everything. And Max was, he really was like, you know, I don't know what you call it, a master, in the sense of an enlightened being, in the sense of a Zen master, a sense of someone whose presence radiated such serenity. I mean, you'd just be with Max and everything would just calm down, and it would all be, and he was so, you know, centered. And Izzy, his wife, she was fabulous because she was so lively. She'd just be around all over the place making tea and talking and everything else. And there's Max sitting in the middle of it all. How are you? Oh, you seen the flowers? You know, the whole thing. So it was funny. We moved to the United States in 1980. We got married. After 7 years, we thought, oh, well, you know, let's get married and have children. And so to the United States, but we were only supposed to do 1 year. It was just a sabbatical. We went to Boulder in Colorado, but she started to teach the Awakened Mind program. But did you ever see the space shuttle take off? That was what happened with Anna and the Awakened Mind program. She just had vertical takeoff. I mean, there were people that they couldn't believe what she was doing and saying. There was the Biofeedback Society of America, I think it was. And they just loved her. They just took her on board from like the moment she got off the plane, because she was talking about biofeedback, not to measure your physiological functions, your blood pressure, your this, that, the other. She was talking about consciousness.
Of course, he has much more to say, but I thought that it's very sweet moment. That would be nice to share. So we also say a special thank you to another guest of ours, which is the founder of iAwake and Spiritual Technology Summit and iAwake website.
I, like John Farron, read your book this week, Integral Recovery, and was extremely impressed by the book and your really heartfelt, the way that you have framed this new, really a completely different approach to help recovering addicts, and that's very symptomatic of who you are as an individual. You know, I've watched you in various venues, and you have the musician's open heart and the psychologist's desire to help people. With your master's in psychology, and you founded this Passages to Recovery program. So you're a wilderness trekker and a bodybuilder, and your book just really encompasses so many different things that are right in the middle of our interests. And so I feel like there's a real connection between us. And then, so I know that from previous conversations with you and Pam, that you both already know about awakened mind training and the mind mirror. And I wonder if you could just start out by telling us a little about how that happens to be. How do you know about Max Cade and Anna Wise?
Well, simply when I started using this technology about, I guess it's about 11 years ago, I actually started practicing. In September, it'll be 11 years, a nearly daily practice. I started reading everything that was available, you know, in the field to find out what the heck was happening, because I had some very powerful experience when I started off. And I was thinking about it in like second and third person perspective. In other words, I wanted to give it to my poor suffering addicts, to give them a tool to meditate more effectively, because whatever we were doing was not that effective. And then I started experiencing myself, and lo and behold, not only was it, you know, healing my students and helping them, but I was saving my own life, as I'd suffered from pretty severe depression. So it just became a part of my my library. I'm not sure, you know, it was a while ago, but, you know, the books are still there. And they got, you know, they're all marked up and dog-eared, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a hamster standing on the shoulders of giants, you might say.
Yes, aren't we all?
You know, no, we all suffer. And we may not all be addicts in the sense that I write about in the book, but we all have ways in which we suffer. We've been hurt. We haven't, you know, reached our full potential. And even that is a human tragedy. If you never become the person you could have been, that's a tremendous tragedy. So through these technologies and through the practice and through the dedication and the discipline of practice, we can begin to shape ourselves and to think, to be able to be and to do things that we never dreamed possible. There's so much to us, and you know, evolution has really created some amazing beings here, and we need to take responsibility for our own evolution, our own growth, and our own healing at this point. And we know so much about it, and no other generation has ever had these tools that we have, and it's up to us to step up and use them and meet the challenges to become the people that we need to be.
Yeah, that's right. And honestly, that is the thing that resonated with me throughout the book, is that if you had taken the word recovering addicts out, you could have really been talking about a program that anyone and everyone can follow evolutionarily. You talked about Enneagram, and, you know, of course, the Integral program, and nutrition and exercise, and just most of all for me, and for probably all the Awakened Mind people listening, the idea of going into the deep and facing what needs to be transmuted and dealing with it accordingly to be able to clear consciousness.
This webinar is available for free in our gallery, so you're very welcome to come and watch and explore. This is another special guest of ours which participated in our neurofeedback webinar. She is a neurofeedback practitioner and former NASA scientist, and from my side I can say she sounds like a great entrepreneur and innovator. And let's listen to her story.
What it was in your background that drew you to neurofeedback and then the mind mirror?
For me, it was kind of a self-help project. I had a concussion when I was 5 and developed anxiety and agoraphobia following that. Wouldn't go to 2nd grade. My mother, who's a school teacher, had to chase me around the house and actually pay me to go to school. As the years went by, I got better, but I still felt like my brain was trying to overcome some kind of inertia that I thought other people didn't have. So fast forward, I was working for NASA. My husband's actually still there. NASA used it for their pilot training, so that's how I heard about it. My husband encouraged me to give it a try, and I went for training. Actually, my anxiety was such that I didn't want someone else to mess with my brain. I had to learn how to do it for myself. And the first trainings, just 2 students training each other. The fog lifted, the inertia lifted, and basically I was hooked. There's a name for it. It's not really so magical. It's called the clear windshield effect. And basically my brain was operating at a faster speed, and colors were brighter, things were clearer, sounds were clearer. Anyway, so I decided I wanted more of this, because of course it doesn't last forever. After the first session, it wears off. So I went back and said, I'd like more. And that was the beginning. Wanted to help other people experience the same thing. It's not always that dramatic for everyone. Sometimes it is, but for my beginning, it was a little bit dramatic. And what drew me to the mind mirror was different people practice neurofeedback differently, but we were doing it in a very passive fashion. So we wanted to add a more active component to what we were doing and use the mind mirror as a way to look at those shifts, to be able to look for more sort of second-to-second shifts, as opposed to what we were doing with neurofeedback, where we're looking at bigger trend lines. So we wanted a device that was more responsive to those subtle shifts in brain state, but we wanted to coach people through some brain shift exercises to begin to understand, so we could add sort of this cognitive layer on top of the more passive layer we were doing with neurofeedback. So that's the plan.
And I know that you also have a global virtual program where you're using the basics, a QEEG measurement, and then sending BrainMaster or whatever neurofeedback system and managing them over Skype or Zoom or whatever.
Yes, we've developed a way actually to do a remote brain map now, so we can work with anybody anywhere. We can also do, of course, other non-map based methods, but we have clients in Germany, Italy, Canada, and the Fiji Islands right now. So yeah, it's been, and time zones have been fun. But it does give us the ability to work with anybody anywhere. We started the program to reach people maybe in small towns who there just wasn't any neurofeedback nearby. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania, so we started just training some folks who we had met in Pennsylvania. So that's kind of how we started, just people who had a need and there wasn't anything around. But then we even have people who find it very appealing locally because they can train at their own convenience. They can get in a large number of sessions in a very cost-effective manner. We typically work with them once a week over Skype, or if they're local, they'll sometimes come in maybe once a month. Then we'll work with them on Skype other weeks. We're monitoring what they're doing. They're sending us their graphs, and then we're adjusting protocols. So we've been doing it for about 6 years, so we've got a pretty good system down where we're confident if you're the right type of client that we can work with you remotely.
That's great. That's a real service.
Truly. There are big plans, and Cindy has lots and lots to say about her programs and teaches and how she combined the knowledge gained from probably the most prominent people in the field of neurofeedback together, and of course including our mind mirror now. Another neurofeedback practitioner that also participated in that same webinar on neurofeedback is Robin, and we say special thank you to her. And here is a little piece from the webinar that I would like you to learn, because I think it's kind of a hot topic today of what I personally see around in my area, and apparently the same problem is quite common in America.
I became involved in traditional neurofeedback first, and that had to do primarily with my practice being a very strong trauma psychotherapy practice. And so, well, I work with PTSD, and developmental trauma. So developmental trauma is trauma that occurs in the early stages of development in utero, within the first 2 years of life, often pre-verbal, but it can be at any point. And so the brain has developed around trauma. It's developed around a fear state. And it develops differently than brains who are in a very calm, peaceful, supportive environment. So when we see adults like this who have grown up this way, it's really unreasonable to ask them to be able to meditate or calm themselves, because these are states that they haven't experienced and their brain isn't capable of going there. So I wanted to use the neurofeedback to help people who have never experienced what it's like to feel safe, to be able to slow down their hypervigilance and slow down their cortical irritability, so that, or even their temporal lobe seizure activity, so that they could feel calm in their bodies for the first time. And also to help them use states like alpha synchrony to work through their trauma and use it like a trance state. So it's very much like imagery, but using the neurofeedback to help somebody obtain the state where they can, well, actually, another piece of trauma is that oftentimes the left temporal lobe is separated from communication from the right. And I often see clients who are either very cognitive and intellectualizing, or they're very somatic. And that's because the left and the right hemisphere aren't really communicating very well. And so we can use the alpha synchrony to help the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere communicate. And then clients can both remember what happened to them and also experience the emotions at the same time, which is actually part of the healing process.
Wow.
So it's really useful, and the mind mirror is helping to support, you know, the generation of these states that many of these people really cannot do. And so I really understand when clients say they're not capable of meditating. Neurofeedback, the reason I pursued it professionally had to do with helping clients to not have to work so hard in order to feel well. And that they didn't have to do it all through talk. And just like Cindy said, sometimes they could be really passive and their brain would improve. And to me, that's a real gift that you can give to someone who spent many, many years of their life suffering and working so hard just to do, stay in a calm state, to stay focused. So we can provide a lot of relief when people realize they can relax and improve how they feel. It's a real gift to them. I've just always been a rider and curious about animals and communication with animals. And I was having difficulty with a horse and learned about Linda Tellington-Jones, who has worked with awakened mind states for a long time and through a type of body work called T-Touch. And so she introduced me to the awakened mind and the mind mirror and to Anna Wise and Anna Wise's studies. And then Linda and Anna had done a lot of research looking at awakened mind states in animals and in people. And so when I went to this workshop and I heard what she was doing, that she was using neurofeedback in this older neurofeedback form, I was very excited. And certainly because for me, I also do peak performance work and I really enjoy doing that kind of work. And as a rider, that all sort of came together with having a way to connect my psychotherapy or psychology and spirituality to the horses. So that was how I got involved with Linda and the Mind Mirror and Anna Wise.
Nothing else to add there. And now we're going to more fun stuff, back to music and creativity. I would like to thank our special guest and speaker with whom we did a wonderful interview and webinar, Marvin Jolly. And let's see a short video where he shares his experience.
And what I learned about percussion is that everything has a sound. Everything has a sound, and there's a resonant core to every object that has the best sound. And that's what I was getting good at. My interest started because I noticed the effect music had on people, how it transports emotion, and I noticed strange things happening with crowds. When we develop a affinity on the stage among the musicians, where we're all locked in, right? We get that flow going. Remember the flow? It's it's contagious to the audience. They feel it, and then they get in the flow. And I said, wow, that's really interesting. So I started looking into that. There's a morphic resonance that happens when people are all on the same page.
It's kind of like a biofeedback loop, isn't it, between you and the audience when you're getting in the same vibe. And
when the band feels the audience are locked in on them, it feeds the audience, the band, and the band feeds the audience, and it just gets higher and higher, and it's one of the most beautiful experiences when everybody's on that page. But the band's got to be sharp. You got to be listening to each other, and you got to be good musicians. And we project that to the audience. The audience appreciates it. They let us know. It inspires us.
If you talk about harmony in terms of the word joy, I mean, we do see that with this heart rate variability and all this research that the Institute for Heart Math has done, is that
Okay.
if you just focus on your heart and feel caring or gratitude or something like that, that's really hard for people. What I do is I bring back a memory of joy, and I can feel myself moving into coherence. And what is coherence but harmony, you know?
Yeah.
And that is an instantaneous.
Yeah, I want to discuss that with you. Thinking in terms of compassion, love, the heart.
Yeah.
These are powerful generators of these brainwave states because of the content. It's amazing. The moment you feel compassion or you want to send out vibes to somebody, you know, like healing vibes or something, so it makes you think the universe is comprised of that.
Yeah, isn't it great? I mean, you just you reach out with your heart, and I mean, it's the same biofeedback loop we've been talking about in terms of music, because I think of it as the divine harmonic, you know, what people call the quantum sea of light and the field or whatever you call it. But I mean, what is reality but an electromagnetic wave spectrum of light? And what is sound but the movement through space? And
yes,
so we're moving through space, and so
it's a carrier wave of consciousness.
Yes, beautifully put. Beautifully put. So I think in the end, don't you, that it's about plugging into that that frequency, that vibration, that brainwave pattern, that harmonic of the higher frequency stuff, joy, love, gratitude.
Yeah, it's like a universal standing wave, you know.
Ooh, nice, nice.
Where did I get that from?
And continuing the webinar series on music, we welcomed another musician and mind mirror self-trainer and opera singer, Joel Mitchell. And let's listen to what he has to say.
Seems to me what's going on with you is that your voice is improving, you know, 30, 40, 50, is just what I would call integration. You're becoming more open to let your voice function optimally. So many of us do is we decide, oh, I'm going to study an instrument. And so I start working on how to do it. I learn my technique and I learn how to do this. And we need to do that. You know, you have to understand how your fingers function, how your arms and limbs function, how a piano functions, and work with these limitations of that to get to like a technical mastery. And then at one point along the way, you can start letting go to be played, you know, so that you and your instrument are played by something else. You can ride on that. And this is something that my experience says is this kind of level of integration. And that really matches like my path in terms of meditation and all that stuff. So at some point, I just really let go and ride the wave. And I think riding that wave is, for me, it's one of the most pleasurable experiences I know of in life. And I'm thinking about that, like, you know, I think this is where musical creation comes from, too, is at some point, yeah, of course, I'm a composer and I know, you know, what an orchestra is like, or I know how the instruments work, and I know what their ranges are and everything. And at some point, I need to just let go and, you know, hear the music of the spheres or wherever that comes from to be able to put that together into a composition. Or if I'm a jazz sax player, yeah, I know how to make my instrument work. But at the moment that I'm in this kind of shared improvisation with my peers, what am I doing but really letting go to the wave, you know, and riding that.
Let's continue riding the wave of sound, but this time I want to say thank you to another sound healer, Ariel Angel, who did a webinar on the same subject of sound healing.
And when I tried sound healing just by reading a book by Jonathan Goldman, Healing Sounds. And in that book, he explains how to sing overtones, which is singing two notes at the same time. So that was very exciting for me, actually more as a musician and kind of a spiritual evangelist, but I didn't really think that would have such a healing potential. But then when I tried and I found that I actually could make those sounds, that was very exciting, and that led me to research more into this whole toning and using sound to heal, basically. And all I can say for now is that it's really had a very positive influence on my life. I really, really like this as a modality. I feel that it's very natural and easy and comfortable, and it gives me great relief and pleasure. Like, you get immediate relief and relaxation on the one hand, but you have changes that are deeper and not immediately apparent, but kind of reveal themselves to you as the days go on. That's my experience. So I can say that since I'm doing this in the last couple of months, actually, like tangibly, physically speaking, a lot has changed in my life. So I hope today, in the very short time that I could allow you to experience this very, very simple way to alter your reality by using your voice, which is always available to you. You don't need any instruments, no need to buy anything. You can do it anywhere, anytime, never fails, and it's just extremely satisfying.
That's awesome.
Very unusual sounds. And now we come to someone you already know. It's Andrea. So special thanks to Andrea because she participated in more than one program with us. And I just decided to show a little piece just to also show you, or kind of let you feel the energy and like what kind of a person we are lucky to have with us. If, for example, we have someone very advanced, what are your favorite higher state meditations that you can recommend, and where people can find them if they're already, somewhere on the websites?
I recommend some higher state meditations that are in my head. So I have to write down. I love to work with space, to go beyond time and beyond space, because what I found out that all these earthly things where you have a place and a rock in higher states, well, there's no place and no rock, it's just light and whatever. So I love to go beyond this language, and I'd like to develop some more meditations with this for this really high state things, where you go into a vortex of creation, where you go beyond the stars and where you go beyond the universe. So they're already in my mind. I have to fix them. And some of the higher state meditations, which are a little bit below the beyond time and space thing, that are recorded and are now in the studio. So we're waiting for the studio to come up, maybe in December, January. Maybe we could go online.
Yes. Let's move on. And one more person, which, as far as I know, is a good friend of Anna Weiss and is a healer. Elizabeth St. John also participated in one of our programs and shared some secrets of healing and teachings of Maxwell Cade.
The whole point of Max's training was to open awareness in no matter what state you're in, whether it's sleep, or deep trance or light trance. And he specifically aimed at helping people create the witness in whatever state you are in. So the Yoga Nidra, when he came across it, was an integral part of that training. I'm not a medical intuitive, so I can't say, oh yes, this is wrong or that's wrong, but I can feel that I sense the physical quality of something that is wrong, and I just allow the energy to flow towards it. The energy has its own intelligence. I don't think power is within exactly. I reckon there's energy streams out there. I happen to connect with a particular one that helps particular people. I put myself in a state, it zooms through me, and it does what it can.
And one more person that you definitely know, because he is famous for his 3-minute hookup and great self-training results. So we thank David Fairweather, and we also want to congratulate him as he successfully got his Mind Mirror Practitioner certification this year.
I guess I had a very strong alpha theta experience that really changed the way that I thought about the narrative of who I thought I was. And through that experience, in sharing that, connected with numerous people that had been there, done that, or were working to get to that place of mind. He turned me on to Anna Weiss's book. By following through that protocol, I was practicing that without the mind mirror and getting some fairly astonishing results, at least subjectively. And it just seemed that the next logical step would be to get some kind of objective evidence. So from there, I guess I found you to this website and immediately ordered my mind mirror on a spur of the moment, just thinking, all the things that I could be training, this will help me more than anything. Because if I'm in this state of mind, then my psychotherapy training is more useful, NLP training is more useful, work I do with hypnosis would be better, my own self-development. So I kind of justified it as the thing underneath everything I really should focus on with some determination for some chunk of time, which is exactly what I did do. Immerse myself into self-training and get myself into a daily regime of practice and experimentation. I did that for about 1.5 years before I finally took the next step of getting some kind of formal training and achieving a higher level of competence with the equipment.
I mean, being in a bliss state and everything is wonderful, and if that accentuates life and makes things more vivid, that's beautiful. But what I found very practically was it just made me a 250% better therapist. And I'm so much more effective because I'm coming from that place where I'm tuning into bigger wisdom than this idiot knows of. I find that it just makes me far more efficient with this consistent training. So it's more important than vitamins.
I want to move on from speaker to our active participants, and thank you to Burka for most active offline participation. I want to thank Deborah Flack from Canada for deep trust in our work. I want to thank Deborah, who is present today, for great felicitous remarks, always to the point, always very sharp. Thank you, Deborah. I want to thank Daniel and Pascal Wagner from France for their biggest financial contribution, because it helps us to continue what we are doing. And I'd like to thank Gary Sheets for the great musical performance that he did during one of our music webinars. And I also would like to thank John Farin for his contribution as a doctor, for his intelligence and spacious mind. And of course, I want to say a big thank you to Donna Buck and Gary Grosbeck for dedication to Anna Weiss's work. And I have a couple of fragments with Donna that I want to share with you.
I wanted to quote Anna Weiss. She said, "The best way to train others into the awakened mind is to be in an awakened mind yourself, so that you can multifacetedly, network thinkingly, be the one to see the inner and the outer focus and to keep track of everything that's going on, including complexion color changes and ears turning pink, anything else that you're noticing, subtleties and slight state changes and expressions on the face and twitches in the body. The way to be able to track all of that is the way a really good elementary school teacher watches every child in the room and takes care of what needs to happen at any given moment in as many multifaceted ways as necessary in order to keep track of it all. So basically being in the awakened mind oneself makes it possible to do all that. Now, of course, it's really great if you have it on sheets and tracking and software design and everything. I want to say something about Anna Wise. I probably will cry, but she and I have almost the same birthday. We were only 2 days apart and only a couple years. She was a couple years older than me. So now I'm older than she was when she passed away. And we look a lot alike. She and I felt like sisters. And I have 4 sisters and I know what it feels like to be a sisterhood. And whenever I feel, like right now today, I have been feeling her right here. She's sort of like watching us and going, yeah, you're doing it. Okay, my work, it's going forward. She is so excited right now. She's here. I just wanted you to tell, I wanted to tell all of you that Anna is helping to massage us from the other side and push this work forward.
And it's not just it. I can say that it was our first year and we'll keep going. And we are very welcome to see more and more people. And as Judith will say,
there's no limit to what we can do.
I would like to stop here with our online achievements and mention that, of course, this last year, 2016, is also remarkable for other things like Mind Mirror software updates, or new meters were introduced, more meditations were recorded, and more practitioners certified,